Hello, everybody.
Hello.
We're live.
We are.
Okay, great.
Very good.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello, everyone.
I will call the meeting to order. And I think that we have an echo in here.
Dylan, can you turn off the computer on the microphone or the speakers on the computer in here? We're getting some feedback. If you can turn that one off, and this one over here seemed to work. That's it right there. And that speaker right there, the Roland one, that works really well. Yeah. All right, we're
There we
good.
go.
Perfect.
All right, now we're good. I will call the meeting to order. First thing is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all join in. Pledge allegiance to the
Allegiance.
Flag
Flag.
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And before we move on to the agenda, I have just a short announcement to make, just to welcome everyone. I'm Sharon Peters. I'm the chair of the Portland Board of Education. I'd like to welcome those of you joining us on Zoom or YouTube. Happy you've chosen to join us as we discuss the district's accomplishments, discuss information, and make policy decisions for the effective operation of the district. Tonight is a regular meeting of the board to conduct the board's business of governing the school system. Everything we'll be discussing and making decisions about has been publicly posted as required by law. We don't make management decisions or solve individuals' problems at these meetings. While our meetings are open to the public, they're not meetings with the public. We welcome comments from the audience confined to the times designated on the agenda. Our meetings are recorded, and if you choose to address the board, please be sure to provide your full name and address. And considering the number of participants we have this evening, comments will also be limited in duration to 1 to 2 minutes each. Our meetings are effective only if we're able to hear each other. I'd ask that your cell phones be muted, and please don't speak when someone else is speaking. Decorum and courtesy are essential elements of civil discourse, and one of our goals is to foster such discourse, not just here, but throughout our district. We welcome your input and are happy that you chose to join us. Another announcement I would make is if you're not speaking, if you could mute your microphones so that we can eliminate background noise as well, that would be very helpful. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
For a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Tim, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous. Approval of the consent agenda. The meeting minutes from September 15th. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, Laurel, is there a second?
Second.
Meg, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. All right, and our first audience is citizens. Is there anyone who'd like to address the board? Yes, okay.
Hi,
Hi, Elizabeth.
how are you? My name's Elizabeth Trojanowski. I live at 77 Old Marlboro Turnpike. And I know there's probably a lot of people who want to speak, and I just wanted to throw a quick comment out there. I, recently went to the open houses at the Portland Public Schools, and I was looking forward to, at the very least, my kindergartner possibly, starting school at least, 4, maybe 5 days out of the week. And after attending the kindergarten open house, um, I can see how hard the teachers are working, and I just want to throw out there how incredibly sad it was for me to hear how difficult things are in the classroom, and how my son's teacher is really on her own, and I worry for her, and I worry for my son, and I worry for all the children who are in there. He's in a class of 17 students, and if they go back all full time together in the room, she's in there by herself without any help, and it's a struggle. And I just want to throw that out there, something to really consider and think about. I was somebody who was backing the idea of, especially the kindergartners going back full time, because they really, they need that. But after hearing some of the teachers speak and talk about how hard it is in the classroom with even half the students, and just being able to do the things that they are there to do, and how hard it is for them because they don't have the regular interaction that they normally did. My heart just went out to them, and I worry about when if the board decides to bring all the kids back 5 days out of the week, how much harder that job will be without any help in the room. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank
And thank you to all the teachers and all of you who are working hard on this. It's not an easy decision.
Sharon, are you able to give up your seat? We have Kate Lawson, and I think Eric is also having trouble getting in.
Oh, sure.
So I'm gonna we can only get
Yeah, I'll go on
100
YouTube.
into,
Okay,
so just log out. You can see it up on the screen up there. So I'm gonna leave the meeting so they can let Kate
Mhm.
in.
is there any other public comment? Yes. Okay.
Hi, I don't know if I'm live, Sarah Maluso, and I would just like to echo what I've said in other meetings, that I think it's critical for our kids to be in school as much as they can while they can. And I think some of the concerns of, having a difficult time in the classroom and some of those things are very valid, but I think the more consistent the structure is, the easier the kids will be to adapt to it, and it might be easier to maintain some of that. So I am all for the kids going back as much as they can, as soon as they can, for as long as they can.
Thank you for your comments, Sarah. Can we have your address, please?
Yes, I'm at 6 Victoria Road.
Thank you.
There we are. Hi.
Can I have your name and address, please?
Hi, my name is Jay Siebold. Come back over here. And I live at 11 East Main.
Thank you. What would you like to tell?
I have a 4th grader and an 8th grader, and the following is an abridged version of an email that I sent the superintendent and the board, edited for brevity. Before I go any further, I want to be clear that any criticisms I express are in no way a reflection of my kids' teachers. I know that they are putting in a superhuman amount of work. When the hybrid model was first introduced, I was a big fan. For my 8th grader, at least, it's been ideal, and I urge you to continue with the hybrid model for grades 7 through 12. Kids at this age have adult-sized bodies and benefit most from the additional space afforded them by this model. By this point, their learning is very peer-centric. Using technology to distance learn in peer groups is age-appropriate and makes sense given the pandemic. For this group, the benefits of switching to full in-person model do not outweigh the potential risks. For my 4th grader, however, it is an entirely different story. And it is a story I hear daily from parents of her peers. Kids in the younger grades are still learning how to learn, and this type of critical development is extremely teacher-centric. Kids in these grades are really bonded with their teachers and need that relationship in order to feel safe to learn and safe to make mistakes. Making mistakes and learning from them is a vulnerable position for anyone, but none so much as for a small child. And that safe environment is not being created within the hybrid model. And it's no wonder my child sees her teacher in person 2 hours and 20 minutes on correctly, which is often not the case. And when that happens, I am left with a frantic child, hungry for contact with her teacher, and panicked that she is missing out on vital time with her. Related is the amount of time our youngest students are spending in front of screens. For my family, we went from being virtually screen-free without even a TV to having daily screen exposure. And I've watched my child's ability to sit and focus disintegrate before my eyes. There's also the issue of what's happening with kids and days in which they distance learn. Many kids are in childcare with kids from multiple communities, leaving the potential open for a super spreader event. For these students, especially in grades K through 4, the benefits afforded by this model do not outweigh the numerous costs to the kids' emotional, mental, and educational well-being. In conclusion, I urge you to keep the older kids in hybrid, but to switch to full enrollment for the younger grades, who benefit most from face-to-face instruction. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And
That's
more,
it.
Dylan?
Okay, I
Okay.
guess that's it for public comment at this point. Thank you again. Student representative reports. I see Justin.
I see Justin. Hi, Justin.
I don't hear anything.
No, I don't either.
Justin, are you muted?
No, he's not muted.
You're having a microphone issue, Justin.
I don't know who's on anymore. So is our other student rep on?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't see.
we can't hear you, Justin. Maybe we'll pass that and come back to you. Is he unmuted? Okay. We'll come back to you, Justin. Communication and updates.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I have a few update communications for you. First, I included with your board packet tonight in the Dropbox a grant award announcement. I'm very pleased to let you know that Julie French, our music teacher at Valley View, and Anne Marie Sirocco, our middle school, our art teacher, applied for and received a grant from the Music and Arts grant from the California Casualty. Which sounds like an insurance company to me, but the grant is in the amount of $250. They are using it to supplement their art supplies. Congratulations extended to Anne Marie and Julie for the initiative they showed to get the grant and have received it. So looking forward to seeing that put to good use.
That's great.
Second thing, I did include in your packet tonight a letter we received from the State Board of Education on September 17th. FEMA delivered, and the Homeland Security Department and the Connecticut National Guard distributed masks to districts across the state. You see on the list here how many masks all of the districts receive, and they're generally reflective of the number of students and faculty and staff that need them. So we received 1,000 masks from FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. Certainly appreciate those. Those were picked up this past Wednesday in West Hartford by Carl. They are here on site, and so they have supplemented our PPE supply. So that's good news. We can certainly use them, and they are available to our students, faculty, and staff at this point. Next, I included in here, I thought you'd be interested in, because I am very interested in, a communication I received from the Connecticut State Department of Public Health that outlines some interim testing guidelines. Now, I included this in here because I want to update you on the state of testing in the state. So I attended a Department of Public Health meeting this morning, and I am very excited to learn that we are on the cusp of receiving, as a state, I think it's 68,000 is the initial delivery, but I heard this morning that Connecticut is expecting over the coming weeks 1 million rapid tests. So these are tests that can be administered with a nasal swab, and they give a result in 15 minutes. So what we're very much looking forward to is the day when we have these rapid tests available and we can train our nurses to use them, so that, you know, they would be used initially to, if a student is sent down to the office, nurse's office, exhibiting signs and symptoms of COVID, a bellyache, you know, or other pretty much anything is a sign and symptom of COVID. We could use these to test the student in real time, and of course determine if it's COVID or not. And if it's not, we could return the student to class. So this is going to happen quickly. I will certainly keep you posted, but I think we're going to receive from the CDC and the state of Connecticut some interim guidelines about school testing. And then once we learn more about these rapid tests, we're very much on top of that. The light at the end of this tunnel involves, of course, the main one being a vaccine. But the second one is, if we can ramp up testing in real time, get accurate tests quickly, we can certainly know if there is COVID in our buildings and rest assured if there's not. So I thought you'd be interested in seeing that. I am monitoring this very closely, attending weekly seminars and webinars with the Department of Public Health, but it's here finally. We're looking at the testing capacity that we need. So it's not a 3 or 4 day wait for test results, but once we have the capacity to test almost in real time with a 15-minute on-site rapid test, that could be a real game changer and a true light at the end of the tunnel. So I thought I'd pass along the outline of the state of testing in the state as of the date of this letter, but it is evolving and progressing quickly, and I will certainly keep you posted and keep my fingers crossed that we get to this point where we can test students in real time very quickly. And I think we're on the doorstep of it. So I thought you would be interested in that communication that we received.
Charles, can I just ask, would there be any sort of privacy concerns with testing, with like a medical test on children? Would we need to get parent permission to test them? Or is that just so far away, we're not even thinking about that yet?
What we don't have to go along with the test are the guidelines about how we would do it. So that's a great question. You know, certainly HIPAA isn't waived. It isn't. We do owe obligations of privacy, especially when it comes to medical conditions. And I'm sure that those concerns will be addressed in the guidelines that we get commensurate with the rollout of these rapid tests.
And those guidelines would be coming from the Department of Public Health, right?
Yep, the CDC, I heard, and the Connecticut State Department of Public Health are working on those guidelines now. I heard this morning that we can expect them potentially before the end of the week, but definitely before the end of next week. I'm thinking we'll start to get some communications about that.
Awesome.
So fingers crossed, the technology is coming. Okay, and then the sorry, I should ask. Any other questions about the DPH communication? Okay, the last one then is you have been either CC'd on or put on the to line to a lot of emails this week, right? From a lot of parents expressing their opinions, sharing concerns about this hybrid approach, and giving us feedback and a sense of how this is influencing and affecting their families. So I'm not going to read them all, of course, there are a lot of them, but as they've been coming, I know you've seen them in your email, but I also thought that it was important to, for the record, document these, and they are now in your Dropbox. So in addition to these, I have received some to me individually. I've included the ones that were sent to me and the full board, and I'm still getting them even as of tonight. In general, I'll characterize them for you without reading them all individually. I have 15 over the past 3 or 4 days. Of the 15 communications that we've received, 14 reflect the opinion that we should be fully reopening. And there is one in here that reflects the opinion that we should remain in the hybrid model and then revisit a potential reopening in November. Generally speaking, I've read all of these communications. I've responded to all of them, and I CC'd you on all of my responses. These are very consistent with the feedback that I received during the focus groups that I ran last week and this week. And I will be giving you a general sense of the feedback I've gotten from parents and teachers and students when we get to the portion of the agenda where I share an update on our reopening status and future plans. So in any event, do you have any questions about any of these emails that you've received from parents, how we've addressed any concerns about how we've addressed the parents or otherwise questions?
I just want to say that I think it was remarkable that you answered probably all of them. From my last count, there were 22 emails. So there's 50, from 15 to 22 in the last couple of hours. But I think it's remarkable that you were able to personally answer each one of them and sort of indicate that that their response was read and appreciated, and also try to ease their worries about how the reopening would go or the hybrid is going. It was painful to read the emails. Parents are really struggling, and I appreciate them sharing all of the information they did with us. So I don't have any questions.
Yeah, and you know, when parents take the time to write these thoughtful responses, they are owed that level of consideration, and I'm happy to do it. So.
Well, can we just make sure that the emails that have come in over the last few hours become part of the record as well eventually?
Yep, and I imagine that tomorrow more will come in once we get to the part where we talk about reopening. This is a difficult decision, and there are opinions on both sides. So I will be completely transparent with you and anybody who asks me to, share their opinions with you, for sure. I will also say, though, that I have had plenty of conversations where people have asked me to keep the conversation private with them, and I'm going to respect that too. So if people want me to share their feedback with the full board and make it a part of the record, we'll do that. But people can also trust that if they want to share something with me in confidence, I'm going to hold that confidence. Okay, so let me go on to the next communications, and this is, well, this is the end of my communications. That the next one we have here is an exciting, the most, I promise, enjoyable part of the night. So I'll let you introduce that, Sharon.
Oh,
yep.
Okay, we've received letters from the National Merit Scholarship Program commending a number of our students.
Sharon, we're going to have Kate Lawson introduce them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So can we
Great.
unmute Kate? And this is the part of the meeting I have most been looking forward to, because this is a really big deal. So Kate, can we get you to unmute and talk a little bit about what this recognition is, and then say a little bit about the students who were recognized?
Absolutely. Can you hear me all right?
We got you. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is probably the most normal thing I have done as a principal all year long. And I am so pleased to have the honor of sharing with the Board of Education the names of 5 Portland High School students who have been named National Merit Commended Scholars for 2020. As commended scholars, they are among the most elite and highest achieving students based on their performance on the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, also known as the PSAT. These students scored in the top 50,000 out of a population of 1.5 million test takers. This is the largest group of commended scholars during my tenure as principal, and I could not be prouder of their accomplishments. Please join me in congratulating the following. Lucas Butler. A little bit about Lucas. When asked about the 3 most memorable moments of high school, He talked about a field trip to Pratt & Whitney, which as a lead aerospace engineering facility provided inspiration to him for future career. He talked about going to States for robotics in his freshman year. And he talked about the fun he had playing the game Super Smash Brothers with other students on last year's Flex Day. Digital electronics is his favorite class with Mr. Murphy. And as I referenced earlier, his future plans include a career in either nuclear or computer engineering. Congratulations, Lucas.
Well done, Lucas.
Yes.
Grace Darby. Grace shares that her favorite activities at Portland High School are the musical, as she loves being a part of the production and watching our school come together. She also loves the pep rallies and the school spirit that comes with it. But her best memories have been the band trips, including Virginia Beach. Her favorite subject is math, and we are so glad she was able to take our new offering this year of AP Statistics with Mr. Brucklin. Unsure of her future plans, she is committed to making the world a better place for as many people as she can. Congratulations, Grace. Justin Rank. Justin is a familiar face to the Portland Board of Education, having served as its student representative for the past 2 years. Justin also feels that one of his most memorable high school experience was the band trip to Virginia Beach. He also loved planning and attending the sophomore auction and playing ultimate frisbee in Coach K's physical education class. His favorite subjects include French and history, and he is looking forward to doing as much traveling as he can in the future. Congratulations, Justin. Haley Sroka. Haley shared that the pit band for musicals is one of her top 3 high school experiences. She also has enjoyed participating in the Math League, especially with her friends who share her enthusiasm, and mentoring the middle school robotics club and inspiring future engineers. Her favorite areas of study include biology and computer science with Mrs. Blodgett, and she is hoping to major in biomedical engineering as she continues her education post-high school. Congratulations, Haley. And finally, Kylie Walsh. Kylie hopes to one day become an actuary, so it is no surprise that her interest is in mathematics. Kylie shared that she has really enjoyed the Math League and both her AP Statistics and AP Calculus classes. Another top memorable experience for her has been being a member of the cheerleading team, as well as attending sporting events and cheering on her classmates. Congratulations, Kylie. Please join me in a final round of congratulations for these outstanding students. I can say with great confidence that you will be joining me in honoring them and their classmates with many more accolades as we move through the school year. Their future is indeed very bright, and they are making us all proud.
Hey, congratulations.
That's great.
Well done. Very well done.
Wonderful.
That's impressive. That is impressive. Thanks, Kate.
You're welcome.
Okay. Is Justin still with us? Justin, is your microphone working? Can you give us our report?
Justin, maybe if your microphone isn't working, maybe you can email Mr. Bernard and we'll read your comments. That could be a workaround here. So it's dbernard@portlandct.us. If you email those comments to Mr. Bernard, we'll make sure they're shared.
We have it. Grace Darby could share it with us in just a moment.
Okay, good. We'll go to my report and we'll come back to.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, so a few updates for everybody just to make sure that we're all on the same page and maybe knows where we're headed. So I've emailed you all the full Sightlines report. Please keep it confidential. And I mentioned in the email that it does include some information that We want to make sure that is for your eyes only. We do have a full presentation with sightlines scheduled at a joint Board of Education and Board of Selectmen meeting that is now scheduled for November 4th at 7 p.m. So hopefully you all have that on your calendar and are able to join that. I have gotten that communication from Meg. So Carl and Meg started collaborating today. I would like to get the Buildings and Grounds Committee one time before the November 4th meeting. The point of that meeting will be for us, the Buildings and Ground Committee, to kind of look through that report and answer any questions. And then I'd like to spend a little bit of time with the Buildings and Grounds Committee talking about the formation of a steering committee so that we can engage the Board of Selectmen after the Sightlines report and solicit their participation on the steering committee. And again, the point of the steering committee will be, now that we have this Sightline report, now that we have brought the Board of Selectmen into the conversation, I'd like to get a group of stakeholders together, very similar to our reopening committee, to kind of start to take a look at a 3 to 5 to 10-year plan for the district as we confront the facilities needs and sort of take a moment to reflect on the current condition of the facilities, the grade level configurations. We'll take a look at housing starts in the community. And we'll generally design a vision, I think, that is going to lead us into the future and hopefully begin a process that helps us address some of our aging facilities in a way that maximizes our ability to support teaching and learning in the 21st century here. Is everybody comfortable with that approach at this point?
Sure.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. I do want to update you on the status of our efforts to achieve the goal that we established involving equity in the Portland Public Schools. I have been in touch with the president of the Teachers Association, the CEA Portland, and I've discussed with her the idea of creating 2 new stipend positions. So, we have stipend positions for many different things, music director, band directors, spring musicals. There's lots of different stipends that we have. I shared the idea with her of creating 1 or 2 new stipend positions and then getting some leadership out of those positions for the formation of an equity committee. Sue McDougall heard the idea and was very excited about it. And as a matter of fact said, oh boy, I know that there are lots of districts that have these types of positions. So she reached out through her network of CEA schools and has come back to me with some really good ideas, both in terms of what we should incorporate into the job description and the goals for these positions, but in general, where other districts are that are ahead of us in this respect. So I've asked the personnel committee to get together on November 5th. I'd like to, review those new positions with you, get your feedback on them. We also have some other issues that involve upcoming negotiations that we have, but I would like to get the board's commitment to support these positions. And then once we have these positions, form an equity task force and begin the hard work ahead of us that, we have to do to make sure equity defines pretty much everything we do. In addition to that, tonight, when you hear from Mr. Martin, he and I have had a lot of conversations about what we need to start doing from a curriculum, instruction, programmatic, extracurricular, co-curricular point of view to continue to move the needle on this issue. So he's going to talk to you succinctly about some of the things that we're doing to examine our curriculum and make sure that we're doing everything we can in line with best practices in our effort to promote equity in the Portland Public Schools. So is everybody comfortable with that? I know that we had a lot of conversation about that at our retreat around an equity goal, but that's sort of the process I've kind of envisioned in terms of creating a leadership team, creating a committee, and beginning the hard work.
That's great,
Sounds
Charles. Can I
Yeah, I
ask?
think that's fine.
Can I ask a quick question about the timeline you're envisioning for this? So you said, personnel is meeting early November to talk about job description, and hopefully that will get sorted out with the union shortly thereafter.
Yep.
When you think forward, what's your goal for the timeline for getting a task force in place and getting volunteers from the community and the student body and the staff and all of that?
Yeah, I think we should have, once we post for and find the people willing to take on these positions. I think we can do that pretty quickly. I'm going to guess mid-late November. As soon as we have those people in position, I'm cautiously optimistic that the first Portland Equity Committee Task Force could meet in early December.
Awesome. Thanks.
Good. Okay. All right. So I did in your packet and give you the update. I gave you the enrollment. So I want you to take a look at it. You know, one of the things in this enrollment report that is different than any report you've ever seen before are the numbers of students who are currently in our PVLA, right? And you know, just be aware of that. As we talk tonight, we're going to talk about the PVLA and the potential for students to enter the PVLA, which I think is going to be a reality, and I'll talk to you about why, and the potential for some students to come out. In general, there is capacity in PVLA in most of our grades. I am very mindful of our second grade enrollment in the PVLA, our third grade, our fourth grade, and our fifth grade enrollment. Those numbers are getting high. In general, you know, I'm concerned and would recommend that we look to support those teachers, especially as the numbers get above 20, and 25 to me is kind of my pain threshold in terms of what's reasonable to manage. So I'm just keeping a close eye on those PVLA numbers. And I wanted you to see those, especially in the context of what we're going to talk about tonight, which is the feedback from parents and particularly the indication from parents that if we fully reopen, there would be an influx of people into the PVLA. So I thought it was a good time to share the monthly enrollment report with you and point out that highlighted new number which you have never seen because we've never had a PVLA before, and then of course answer any questions about it.
Can I ask a quick question about the Bridges program on here? It looks to me on this chart that there's one fifth grader and one sixth grader participating in the Bridges program, according to the way these numbers are laid out. I want a better understanding of how many students are involved in the Bridges program. Is it currently just 2 students, or are there K through 4 students who are participating? Are there other students that are in and out that are?
Can we unmute Dawn Davis and see if Dawn heard that question? I want to.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi. So in answer to your question, Laurel, there are 4 students enrolled in the program right now, and then other students are in varying levels of becoming engaged or working with the program as well. You know, this is the opening month of this program, and we didn't want to bring kids back and put them into the program, pulling them right out of their classrooms where they left in the spring. So this has been a gradual transition. Right now, we're doing a lot more pushing of the people that work in the program out into classrooms working with students, getting them ready for either possible transition into the program or a hybrid model where, well, I hate to use the word hybrid, but a model where they're part in their home classroom and then they're part in the Bridge program. So it's, so I want to say there's 5 students altogether right now that are actively involved, but the team is doing lots of outreach work across the school. We've also had some new students that have come in to us this year, and we're giving them some time in their home classroom where they registered, and then we'll be possibly moving them over. But this is all very, very new to the team. And I spent about an hour and a half this afternoon with the team in a meeting with both the homeschool student team and the Bridge program team and the administrators from both. And it's beautiful to see how it's working.
So on this chart where it says 1 under the Bridges program for 5th and 1 for 6th, is that just because those students are in the Bridges program full time and don't have a home-based classroom? Is that why they're being counted there? Just
I'm not sure what document you're talking about, Laurel.
It's the October enrollment report.
Okay, so
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks, Dave. I'm sorry, I just don't have that in front of me, but I don't, I'm not sure why the other students aren't listed in there, other than they're listed in their homeschool enrollment and, their home classroom enrollment.
Okay. Maybe we should take a look at that for the future enrollment reports, just so that we can get just so we have a better understanding of where students actually are.
Right, and I also, because when I present later in October at the October 20th meeting, I'll be able to give you a rundown of what students are in which specialized programs, as well as which students are just in special education, EL settings, because we just did our final EL count as well. So the board will get all that information when I present on October 20th.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Charles, can I ask a question about the cumulative summary? I'm seeing that there was a net loss of 8 students from September to October, and they're all from middle school or high school. So I just wanted to check, are we having parents unenroll their children in maybe homeschool or private school? Do you know what's going on there?
We do. We've had about that many. I'm not sure if it's specifically middle school and high school. I think it's a mix of some of the younger grades too.
There wasn't a change. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was movement both in and out at the elementary, but the number was the same for elementary.
Yes, the short answer to the question is we've had about half a dozen parents who have chosen to homeschool in lieu of the hybrid or the PVLA, and 2 parents who felt the PVLA wasn't something that was working for them and decided to homeschool. All of those parents indicated to me that if and when we were to fully reopen, they would be re-enrolling.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
And then sometimes when we've gotten this report, we've gotten the numbers for the open choice enrollment as well. And I was wondering if we could get that as maybe at next meeting.
Yes.
To see where we are.
Yep. Choice, sure.
Hey, Charles.
Yes.
My only question is, I've tried to find the document. I can't find it from last year. Do you know we ended last year or what the average was for last year?
I have to go back and look. I'm sorry.
Okay. You know me, I'm the numbers guy. I always want to see what the changes from year over year. So
I'll tell you what, I'll put that in my Friday email to you.
okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions about the enrollment report?
No, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, one last one, and then we have Justin's comments emailed in, and I'll let Dylan read those out for you. School lunches, you wanted a quick update on that. Happy to provide it to you. So as you know, we are providing, everybody is, whether you're eligible for free and reduced price meals or not, everybody in the district is receiving free lunches until December. So right now, just to give you a sense, the numbers went significantly up when we started having them free for everybody. As of today, from September through today, Anita gave me the numbers. We've distributed 3,183 meals to students who are in person and 357 meals to families who are in our PVLA. So the lunches are available to, of course, students who are here learning in person, all students on the Wednesday distance learning day, and then students who are home in the hybrid model, and students who are in the PVLA. The lunches can be picked up here at the high school between 10 and 10:30. If those times aren't working, if people need to be a little bit later, I'm hearing from Anita that they're flexible and able to accommodate that. Right now, we haven't heard from any families that have transportation issues, but if any families do have transportation issues and are unable to pick those up, what I'll do is I'll ask the principals to put in their Friday notes this week to let us know, and certainly we can figure out a way to make sure that everybody is fed, which is our top priority. So those are the numbers. Right now, we aren't delivering any lunches, but certainly we want to make sure that we support families, and Portland isn't so large that it wouldn't be reasonable that we could ask somebody to make a delivery if a transportation problem is a reality.
Great.
All right. Okay, that's all of my report, but sure, but maybe before we go to Stephanie, can we get Dylan to read Justin's report?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Go ahead, Dylan.
Hi everyone, I'm Grace. I'm going to be reading the report for Justin. This past week was very energetic at PHS. The high school had its first 2 in-person spirit days for both of our cohorts. On A Day, each class dressed in a different color inspired by the TV series Avatar: The Last Airbender. On B Day, students were encouraged to dress up as their favorite Disney character. Students, faculty, and staff joined the fun, and this was a great supplement to our weekly photo theme in the Highlander highlights. Also recently, the boys and girls cross-country team had their first meets. Both teams came home with wins against Morgan and North Branford on October 1st and 2nd. The boys won again at home today, and the girls' next meet is October 8th. Boys and girls soccer hosted senior nights today and Friday, October 2nd, respectively, and honored their hardworking senior athletes. It's looking like great seasons are in store for all of our athletes. Additionally, Student Senate recently conducted a survey among high school students addressing hybrid or full-time reopening plans. Out of approximately 217 responses, 110 voted for the hybrid model, while 107 voted for a full return. Students wrote that while they generally feel safer and enjoy the ability to work at their own pace, it can be hard to focus while online. Several responses also wished for a normal, full-time return as soon as possible, but acknowledged some concerns that the board has shared as well, such as how social distancing would be achieved in a much more populated environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace.
And thank you, Justin.
And Justin, yes. Okay, are we ready for business and financial affairs?
Yeah, so Stephanie was having a little bit of tech trouble, but I think she hopefully has it straightened out. Dylan, can you unmute Stephanie Pergola? There she is. Hi, Stephanie.
I can't see anybody, so I'm looking at a black screen. If you could see me and hear me.
We can
so
see you.
We can see you.
Hi. So basically I shared the normal document that I usually do for the first quarter. So really I'm just here for any questions or comments you may have about all the documents that I sent out.
Just I saw someone had told me the other day that there was another grant that was available, and it looks like you've already applied that to your spreadsheet on the estimates and expenses for COVID related stuff. The $100,000 Corona relief, is that right?
Yep. The ESSER is the CARES Act. That's the 70,000 one, and then the CFR is the $100,000 Corona relief fund.
So we have 170,000+, but our expenses so far are the 188,680. Is that right?
Total is 359,062.06. So after the grants, we need $188,680 to cover the difference.
And then
and that's as of today.
It doesn't look. Okay. I was going to say because the sheet I'm looking at that those numbers don't match what you sent us. I think I'm looking at
on the COVID summary.
Right.
If you add, so I have at the bottom, 104,067 is kind of the instructional supplies.
I see. Yep.
Add that into the right column for the personnel expenses, and that's where the 359 comes in.
So the 293 plus that 104. Okay.
Yeah, but Stephanie, point out that that's if we run the PVLA all year.
Correct.
Okay, so these are still estimates projecting out things going as they are presently.
Right.
Yep. All the ones that say either CFR or ESSER, those are actual. I've accounted for that dollar amount. The ones that say unfunded, those are kind of as we move through the year, depending on how long we go.
Can you talk about what that estimated other unbudgeted overages category is?
So those are the items that Charles talked about previously. A personnel item, the 0.4 social studies teacher that you guys added in, I think last meeting, a maternity leave coverage for a speech teacher, And then two additional paras that were added in, that were Hartford funded, and those students moved out of district. So the paras are still here and we have to cover their salary for that.
Okay, so those are non-COVID costs as well.
Correct. Correct. Those are normal, like everyday ins and outs. If we were in a normal year, like we normally have ins and outs of people coming and going kind of thing.
Got it.
So that's why I kind of put them as other unbudgeted, because they're not COVID related.
Mhm.
But I wanted to include them because it does make a bigger picture of where we are. And in the spending comparison, the yellow column is usually what you'll see, what you've seen each month. I added in the green for my usual quarterly report to compare to last year. Included in these costs are most of these charges you see. So once I start doing the drawdown, which I did a portion of it already, I will start transferring that money out. So the cost or the total will go down by that $170,000. But the amounts included in through 9/30 as of right now include all the COVID costs in it.
I got a quick question back on the COVID stuff. Not trying to be pessimistic, but what happens if all of a sudden we don't get any more money and we've spent $300,000? In the last several years, we've come in pretty close to our budget. So where does that money come from? We've never encountered this before. Maybe Charles could answer that, or.
Well, that's
You can hold their hand out to the Board of Selectmen, I
that is
think,
a
right?
very, very, very real concern that Stephanie and I share.
So, sorry to interrupt. Did we already receive the CARES Act and Corona relief money?
The CARES Act is currently, I can draw down on that. The Corona relief I just submitted today. It's due tomorrow. So once the budget document becomes available, then I can start drawing down on that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So it's really 188 in COVID related expenses that we're looking at having to cover, assuming we do PVLA for the whole year.
Correct. But there is still things popping up here and there, that teachers need, see that they need as they continue on through the year. They're small, but the bulk of the costs have been put in.
Yeah, so Dave, let me frame your question for you this way. The PVLA was not something we budgeted for last year, obviously, because we had no idea, right? Some might call the expectation that we support families at home an unfunded mandate, right? That's what you would call it, right? I don't want to say that in a pejorative way. I think it's critically important, and I support it in concept. And the PVLA is going great and really supporting those families that feel the need to take advantage of it. But it wasn't budgeted. We've received no state or federal money to pay for it. So right now, it's affecting the LEA budget. Now, the way Stephanie and I are managing it is, one, we've frozen the budget. We are not spending anything, much to the chagrin of many of our administrators and teachers who are being told, no, you can't buy those things. We are in a freeze. So my hope, and Stephanie and I talk about this regularly, is that we can freeze our way into covering that. Our second hope, of course, is, please, anybody in Washington, D.C. who is hearing me, I've heard that your COVID stimulus has failed again. Stop failing and get a COVID relief package. And don't forget that we schools are trying to reopen and support families who can't come back, right? So our second hope, of course, is that the federal government comes through with additional funding like they did with the COVID relief. Also, Hartford, if you hear our plea, and I know that our superintendents groups have been very vocal, and our superintendents lobbyists are very vocal, that we have unfunded mandates in all of our district to do these things. At some point, we need to fund these. So if we can freeze our way out of it, great. If we get additional revenue streams, wonderful. And that would seem appropriate to me as a citizen, but that's a separate commentary there. if we can't freeze our way out of it and we don't open additional fund revenue streams, there may be a real conversations with the town about whether there's additional revenue streams that become available from the town. If that doesn't happen, well, then we're in the really bad place where we start talking about furloughs and layoffs and give backs and more draconian steps. It's still early. We're still hopeful that the freezes and the revenue streams become available. But Stephanie and I are watching this really carefully, and we're aware. And I'm glad you're aware too, because we don't have any easy or clear answers at this point.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we've got a large audience on here, so I mean, this is a good opportunity to say the obvious, that if you're freezing yourself to cover these large expenses and we don't get a huge amount from the federal government or the state, next year's budget cycle might be a lot more than people are used to. So we're going to need the support of the community as we go into budget season. If we're cutting back drastically this year, that means our needs for next year are going to be all that much greater. So just throwing it out there.
Yep, that's accurate.
Thanks for saying that, Dave.
Yeah.
So do we have any other questions?
At what point of the year do you think that we would have to seriously, well, I know we look at it every month, but when would we really need to start those discussions, do you think? February, January?
I would say, Stephanie, and you can give your own spin on it. This is a shot in the dark, but if we get to the end of February and we're still running the PVLA full bore, then we need to start having these real conversations about what we do. And by then the election will be over. Hopefully the second round of coronavirus stimulus will have been decided. I think by that time we'll be far enough along in this that whether we've tested or vaccinated our way through it, whether we're aware of revenue streams becoming available from Washington, D.C. or Hartford, I think that the January, February time frame is the opportunity to get real.
Okay.
Stephanie, would you agree with that?
Yes, agreed. And the biggest part too that I'm waiting for is, I think someone asked about the open choice enrollment. I'm waiting for those numbers as well, because that's a portion of our funding that we get for those students. So depending on what that number is, this can look a little different next month.
Right, we need to hit the 4% mark, I think, right? Is
Right.
that the magic number? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because then we'll get the full 8,000. But when we
Right.
budget at a certain number, and depending on how Hartford students take on our virtual learning or hybrid, if they pulled them and our enrollment goes down, that's $8,000 less per student we get.
Right.
So let's not panic yet, though.
I don't sleep at night.
Seriously, I think a lot of us don't.
Any other questions?
No, thank you though for the very thorough reports. They're still appreciated.
Okay.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Welcome.
And I guess we'll move on to Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Technology.
Dylan, if you could unmute Eric Martin.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Good evening. I'm going to update you tonight very briefly, as Dr. Britton had said earlier, on 4 items. So first, I'll be giving an update to our Virtual Learning Academy. I'll talk a little bit about teacher evaluation and where we stand in the district in the current school year. And then I'm actually, sorry, only 3 items. The last one has quite a bit to it, to go into more detail about the equity work that Dr. Britton had described is already underway within the district. So first, our update with our Virtual Learning Academy. As a reminder, I'm serving currently as the principal to our Virtual Learning Academy, which has been great work. It's been hard work, but it's been very rewarding to meet the needs of our families who are not attending in-person school at this time. We started PVLA with an original enrollment of 227 students in grades pre-K through 12. For the week that just ended, we finished with 212 students enrolled in the Virtual Learning Academy. And so that's indicative of some traffic that we've seen going from the Virtual Learning Academy back into our schools. That comprises the bulk of the 15 students who have left the Virtual Learning Academy. And that's really a testament to the safety protocols that we have in place in our buildings and to our families' increasing comfort with sending their children back. For those families that remain within Virtual Learning Academy, the parents are very, very happy with the work of our teachers and with the consistency of the academic experience afforded their children. We've been able to do a lot of work to ensure that we're continuing to provide feasible special education and support services for those students in PVLA. I'm very grateful to be able to have worked with Dawn Davis and our various special education personnel, school counselors, and social workers to make that happen. Our teachers are doing a great job in the Virtual Learning Academy. They're managing some obvious tech issues. We'll be talking, not to kind of throw another coal on the budget fire here, but we'll be talking about replenishing our district Chromebook devices, some of which are quite antiquated at this point, and no longer able to keep up with some of the application demands that today's education requires, especially in a distance learning capacity. Otherwise, instruction's going very well. A strength of our Virtual Learning Academy is that the curriculum of PVLA is the curriculum of our buildings. So in that way, our students' academic experiences from an instruction and curriculum standpoint are completely aligned to their in-school classmates. We have similar schedules, and although it's an at-home school day, it runs very similarly to our in-person school days, and that's been another point of satisfaction for families and students and teachers as well. We've heard from many parents with friends, relatives, in other districts that no one is doing it, it seems, quite as well as Portland with the Virtual Learning Academy. I'm not going to take the credit for that, but rather pass it on to the incredible work that our teachers and staff are doing within the program. We will say that it's not for everyone. So a lot of the traffic that we've seen moving from PVLA back into our in-person schools are families that we've really reached out to on our end, or that our teachers have expressed concerns about students having difficulty managing the realities of full distance learning. And we've connected with those families and welcomed those students back into our buildings. And we're confident that we can continue to do so even with the potential of a full reopening. That is to say, to invite more families back from Virtual Learning Academy into our buildings with success. I'll quickly move on to teacher evaluation. So teacher evaluation or educator evaluation rather in the state of Connecticut was waived at the end of the 2021, at the end of the 1920 school year in light of the COVID pandemic. It's since been reinstated by the state for the 2020-21 school year. Our Portland Professional Development and Evaluation Committee made some minor adjustments to our typical and previously state-approved evaluation plan. And that plan has now been enacted. So goal setting conferences are underway for our educators between themselves and their evaluators. Our evaluators are getting out into classrooms, observing teachers, and most importantly, as is the goal of any educator evaluation program, providing our teachers the feedback and support they need to continuously improve instructional practice, including in these times of increased digital learning. I'm going to wrap up with probably the lengthiest and, in my opinion, the most exciting item. It's new and it's exciting because it's so important, and that is the equity work that we're working to advance within the district, including the development of an equity task force that Dr. Britton had described. So I'm going to talk about a couple of ways that we're working to increase equity outside of that equity task force, and then I'll give a little bit of attention to that. So I've been working closely with our correct liaisons around open choice to take a critical look at our open choice practices. We want to make sure that we're doing all we can to engage our open choice families, to keep them engaged while they're here, and to increase our enrollments over time. The entire leadership team in the district make no secret about our open support of, or our high support rather, for open choice and our desire to see more and more open choice students within our midst. But that requires us to have really solid practices, and we know there's room for improvement there. So we're looking at everything from translation services to how we communicate information from the district, including the languages in which we communicate that information, and also working really, really closely with our open choice families, many of whom are fully distance learning at this time, to make sure that those partnerships remain strong and that they exemplify our commitment to equity. The next thing I'm doing, or we're doing in the district rather, we've reached out to representatives from both the State Education Resource Center and the Connecticut Center for School Change, two leading nonprofit organizations in the state whose primary work is advancing equity within public schools. They're going to be instrumental in the types of professional learning that we provide our teachers, and also in the formation of the equity task force that I'm going to describe next, and the work of that task force. It's important to note that in all of this work that we're doing around equity, it's a huge source of national grant funding right now. So I'm working very diligently to tap into those grant funding revenue streams, understanding that, the budgetary reality that we're in now and likely to continue in for some time as we work our way out of a pandemic reality, hopefully again sooner than later. So the Equity Task Force, as Dr. Britton has described, he's advocating for the addition of stipended teacher leadership positions to help head up our Equity Task Force. And basically what this task force is a committee, small to start while we get our feet under ourselves, but then certainly growing in number and effect, comprised of admins, teachers, parents, students, community members, and Board of Education members, with a singular goal of improving equity across all of Portland Public Schools systems. This is not work that we're the first to do. We're certainly, not behind the times in doing it. The time is right. The time is now. Any later, we may be behind the times. But the point there being, we have some incredible work from surrounding districts to draw upon. And I'm utilizing my professional network right now to establish those links with other districts who've done similar work, such that when we establish our own task force, that first meeting can be spent learning from the examples and the trajectory of other districts. As we work to improve equity across systems through the work of this task force and beyond, key measures will be student achievement outcomes. We want to make sure that outcomes are equitably represented across all groups and all subgroups, as well as attendance and disciplinary records, graduation rates, college acceptance rates, and college retention rates. Also, course demographics. We want to make sure that within our program of studies in all of our buildings, especially within advanced classes versus remedial or support classes, that we're seeing, indicators of equity as reflected in the student bodies. And then most importantly, and most immediately, is the work of pursuing curricular equity. So the work of this task force and the work of our school-based equity leadership teams, which will be subgroups of this task force, will be to take a hard look at our curriculum and to make sure that within our curriculum, we're representing cultural literacy and responsiveness, that our students, being a varied and diverse group of learners, when they learn through our curriculum, they see individuals who look like them, who come from cultures like their own, and whose perspectives are ones that they can relate to. And that we have a balance of those perspectives, cultures, and races represented within our curriculum. And there's certainly work to be done there. And it's work that I think that the task force is well suited to take on. I appreciate the question about the equity task force timeframe that was asked earlier. I absolutely think mid to late November, if the personnel committee can approve these stipends to formulate the task force committee, with our first meeting in early December, sounds absolutely doable. I can meet that time frame. I'm happy to take any questions from the board.
I don't
I have
think
a
you need
question.
to beat at this point. I don't have any further questions. I think you've covered everything. I think the biggest thing is the curricular equity to make sure that our policies also recommend and meet the need of equity going forward.
Thanks, Meg. And I think to that very point, having Board of Education members on the task force is critical. And just like we have our school-based equity leadership teams, the board is going to have your own equity homework to tackle as well.
We will.
Great, thank you.
I didn't have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you for that update, and that I'm delighted to hear you talking about all of this and can't wait to see where it goes in the next few months.
Thank you. Personally coming to Portland, in the opening discussions I had with the interview panel and with Dr. Britton, equity was a common theme between the district and myself, and I'm more than happy to help advance the work here.
Super.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Go lay down. Go lay down. No. Go lay down. Go.
Did us or did?
Okay, I guess we're ready to move on to new business. First is policy 4118.16, reports of suspected abuse, neglect of children, or sexual assault of students. Our first reading.
All this is a language change. The Department of Youth and of Family Services, DCF, has enabled reporters, mandated reporters, to be able to go online and file a report, as opposed to making a phone call and then doing paperwork. They're still, the timeline is still the same, but they have just made it a little bit easier to make those reports available through online.
I would just clarify that too. I think if I remember right, it was you could only do the online reports if it wasn't like a jeopardy situation.
Right. In a critical situation, they would still have to make a call. And then there's a time frame for paperwork to follow.
Right.
Any questions?
I think we had talked about maybe asking to waive the second reading on this one if people were comfortable, if they had reviewed it. I don't know if that's something we would consider. We can think about it after we look at all of them, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
We just need a motion to waive the second reading.
Do you want to look at all of them first? Because that might be the case for all of them.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody have any other questions on this one? All right, next is policy 6146, graduation requirements.
This simply changes or adds the language of manufacturing as part of the curriculum and part of what we would offer for students in high school. It doesn't change the number of credits for graduation, and this was legislative action. So we're mandated to include this language. So it's actually just a language in inclusion.
There is one other change to this that didn't come up as a red line strikeout. If I recall, we deleted a couple of sentences from the very first paragraph at the end of the paragraph that used to indicate that that when you set a graduation date, it must be at least 180 days, to 185 days after the start of the school year. And CABE indicated that we should eliminate that language because of a legislative change last year. So we took out those couple of sentences from our policy.
Right.
The last one is 9321.2, and it's about electronic Board of Education meetings. This comes under the executive order by Governor Lamont to be able to hold Board of Ed meetings and other municipal meetings via Zoom. And this just sets out the policy for freedom of information and mandates the information. When this policy, when the executive order disappears in February, unless they extend it, and we go back to in-person meetings, this policy would go away also. But this
This is
just,
actually a bylaw change, just to point
it's a
that out.
bylaw change. That's
Yeah,
correct.
it's
Yep.
just, I don't-
Sorry.
That's okay. I
Bylaw.
think we had this bylaw and this updates it to reflect what we're actually doing now, like this
Exactly.
meeting right here.
Yep.
And I think if I remember right, it's only relevant to situations where there is an executive order in place, right? Is that right, Charles?
Right, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And this just reflects literally what we're doing this very moment, which is having Zoom-based meetings. The
Right.
bigger conversation will come when we're out of a pandemic about how we might possibly continue to allow audience participation and otherwise use Zoom. But for right now, this is strictly related to during the course of the governor's order that allows us to do this. That's it. When the governor's order ends, this bylaw would change or go back
Right.
existing bylaw.
Mm-hmm. So if there aren't any questions, and they all do seem relatively simple, I would make a motion to accept the 3 policies as presented tonight, and that we would approve them without going to a second reading.
Yeah, I would second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll move the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for all your hard work. Everyone on that committee.
We are a hardworking committee.
You are.
Meg holds us to task, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, but you guys are good, and we make a good team. It really is it's a great effort on everybody's part. And Charles has come up to speed, very quickly learned all the fun things about policy. So we're good.
And we just got the October one, so buckle up.
Oh, good.
Oh, thank you for letting us know that.
Thank you.
Oh.
All right, and now we will move on to old business. School reopening report.
All right. So is it Grace, are you going to be showing the Google slide? So we're gonna have I'm going to work through some presentations here so everybody can see it. So this is, I think what is drawn in the audience tonight, and this reflects, I want to give everybody an update on our school reopening, and then I'll look ahead, right, which way we're going. So here we go. So if I can ask Grace, why don't we advance the slide for first one. So just as a reminder, we asked the community back in the summer to give us from September 1st to October 13th in a hybrid model. Now, as a reminder, we didn't put the hybrid model in place because the metrics specifically related, and you'll hear more about this too, the amount of COVID transmission in the community required us to be in a hybrid, right? The numbers of over the summer when we decided to do this were lower than they are now. But we asked for this because we really needed the time to study the efficacy of our mitigation strategies. Now, remember, back in August, we were learning that all of our students had to wear masks, that we had to cohort students, that we had to socially distance students. And the fact was, in August, we had no idea if students would be able to or willing to wear masks all day. We had no idea if we could cohort students. We had no idea if we could do any of the mitigation strategies that we were asked to do, because we had never been asked to do them before since, the Spanish flu in 1918, and I don't think many of us remembered that. So we asked for this time so that we could see if we could do these things effectively. And at that time, we didn't know what the effect of opening schools would be. Would schools quickly be recognized as super spreader events? So we needed some time to really study both the efficacy of our mitigation strategies and what would happen in our state and in our town when schools fully reopened. And thank you for your support in that. And that's what we've done. So that's a reminder. We asked for September 1 to October 13th to do this. And we promised the community that on October 13th, we would be prepared to inform the community about how well that has gone and make adjustments accordingly. So if I can get the next slide, please. So the very good news is we have had zero cases of COVID reported in any of our schools. I just want to stop and let that sink in for everybody. No reports of any cases present in our school or community spread of COVID in any of our schools. That is the most important metric. That is the one that helps me sleep at night, right? We are watching this carefully. Thank God. Other school districts, I'm sure anybody who watches the news have not fared nearly as well. This is a reflection, I believe, of two things. One, the commitment of the citizens, families, and students in this town to do the right thing, to be smart, to not attend large rallies or whatever. It's not the time, not yet. And because of that, there's been very little community transmission in the town of Portland. And I think it's also a reflection of the fact that the hybrid works, right? That it prevents the spread of this virus. So good job, anybody hearing my voice. And please continue to do the right thing until this is over. We want our schools open, and this is the way it has to be. I want to continue to come back to this board meeting every month and say we've had 0 cases in our schools. So let that sink in. Take that as a moment to celebrate and be grateful that this disease has not spread in any of our schools as of yet. And get the next slide, please. All right, so from the 21st of September to the 3rd, I and our reopening committee and our leadership team, we gathered feedback. We took a moment to collect and analyze some qualitative and some quantitative feedback and use that to inform the recommendation that I'm going to bring to you tonight. Specifically, I'm going to share with you tonight the infection rates. I want to show everybody where you can find those rates and point out what the infection rates are in the Middlesex County, Hartford County, and the Chatham Health District. That's part of this presentation tonight. I've also had lots of discussions with the Chatham Health District Director. He's wonderful and has been a wealth of information and guidance throughout this process. We've administered surveys to and had a remarkably strong response rate to all of our parents and guardians, our faculty and staff, and we surveyed our students in grades 7 through 12. You heard one of the results tonight. You'll see it again in this presentation. And last week, I held 8 focus groups with parents. I've had a focus group with 2 groups of Portland High School students, Valley View teachers, Gildersleeve teachers, middle school teachers. I didn't get to Brownstone teachers or high school teachers, but I'm pretty confident that the feelings and the sentiment that were reflected by their colleagues at Valley View, Gildersleeve, and PMS reflect a prevailing sentiment amongst our faculty and staff. So if I can go to our next slide, please. All right, so there are 3 sources of data that I am looking at pretty much every day at this point in terms of where you can find the infection rates. I want to just take a moment to show you where you can find those and to show anybody watching where they can find these, because these are the metrics. So Grace, if you could click the link to the Portland Public Schools website. And so anybody can do this. You can do this along with us if you're watching from home, or board members. If you want to open a new tab next to your Zoom, you can do this too. Please scroll down. And here it is. So you see this link where it says back to school information page, information, give that a click. Here is where I have been posting all of the information that the reopening committee has been using to make decisions. You'll find state plans here, CIAC plans here, addendums to the state plan, minutes from our meetings, agendas from our meetings. I've been tried to be completely transparent in this process. You'll find a podcast from here. If anybody is interested about any of the information we're using to make these decisions, this is where you'll find it. So if we can scroll down, over here on the right, I receive bi-weekly updates from our Chatham Health District Director, and I post them here. The last one I received is dated September 28th. So if we can open that up and let's take a look. So at the top chart there, you'll see the numbers from the Chatham Health District and the towns that comprise those. Of all of the towns, Colchester is in the toughest spot. So if you've been following the news, you are aware that at an elementary school in Colchester had experienced an outbreak and some staffing challenges that came with that. So you see that there. Now, the important number here is if you scroll up just a little bit, go the other way, scroll up a little bit till we get to that chart there. So you see that red line that's moving? That's the 7-day rolling average of infections. So the numbers go 0, 5, and 10. If that red line goes above 10, that's a signal that we need to go back to hybrid. If that red line goes above 25, that would be a signal that we need to go fully remote. I'll revisit that 10 to 25 and 25 number shortly. Now, anybody who would look at this might be alarmed that at the far right of this column, you see a massive spike in new infections, right? That is higher than the bad old days back in April, May, and June. I've spoken with Russ Melman, our director of Chatham Health. That number is isolated to primarily to a nursing home in Colchester. So it doesn't reflect massive community spread in the Chatham Health District or in Portland. That's primarily isolated to a single nursing home in Portland that had a big jump in cases. And that's why the line was pulled up. But in general, you can see the red line throughout September has been bouncing below the 5 new cases per 100,000. And that's one of the big numbers we look at. So with the exception of that blip, and we'll hopefully see it as a blip when we get the next report, that's where we are in our Chatham Health District. So Grace, if you can go back to the reopening information and scroll up. Again, this is publicly available information. I would encourage anybody to monitor it along with me. Click that hyperlink there to our Department of Public Health or State Department information. This just takes a moment to load. Okay, so scroll up a little bit. Stop right there. So here you see the numbers. These are yellow, orange, and red. I prefer to think of them as green, yellow, and red. So the yellow on this would be low new infection rates, below 10 per 100,000. That's a signal that you could fully reopen. The middle one, 10 above 10 or between 10 and 25 new infections per 100,000. That's even though it's orange here, I look at that as the yellow light moment where if we get to that point, we would be expected to be in hybrid. And then the red there, which is the place we don't want to get to, would be above 25 new infections per 100,000. That would be a signal that we need to close the schools and return to remote learning. So scroll up a little bit. And here, again, you can see each of the counties. Now, I'm going to point out that there's one county that's in the yellow, right? That's not in the less than 25, but has surpassed that threshold of 25 new infections per 100,000. And there's a better chart to look at in a moment. So I'll ask you to scroll up a little bit, Grace. Okay, stop right there. So there it is. You see the top one, and that's now a county that is in this warning area, which is New London. You probably have heard about Norwich, which has closed its schools for 2 weeks. But the New London County is in an area where they are being cautious now. And generally by being cautious, it would mean that if they had fully reopened, they according to the metrics, would be advised to move to a hybrid. Everybody else is below that number 10, right? for us, we're Middlesex County. You see that we're on the low end, but there are the other counties there. And clearly the Tull and Wyndham counties, you see those numbers are a little higher. That's a reflection of Yukon and the outbreaks that they've experienced in stores in Mansfield. But for us, the Middlesex, we're where we need to be. The other county that I'm watching closely is Hartford. And we need to watch Hartford closely because we do have Portland students who reside in Hartford. So Middlesex County and Hartford County are the two counties that we want to keep a close eye on. So that's the data. That's how you can get to it. Anybody hearing the sound of my voice is encouraged to monitor it right along with me. I am checking this site in particular pretty much every day, if not every other day. So let's go back to the Google Slides presentation. Any question about the data and transmission rates? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So our Chatham Health District Director, and I spoke with him today, he supports a full reopening for the public schools so long as the numbers remain below 10 per 100,000 students, which is where we are now, and the Portland Public Schools continues to implement the mitigation strategies that we all have been studying and are aware of: mask wearing, social distancing, etc. So the metrics suggest that we could fully reopen, and the Chatham Health Director is saying he would support a full reopening, but we need to watch those numbers very carefully. Next slide, please. Okay, so we reached out to parents. We asked parents what their preference was, what their comfort level is with a full reopening. This is reflect people's opinions and breaks down to 42. I'm sorry, those are inverted. That's 57% of the parents. My bad. Let me correct that slide. 57% of parents prefer a full reopening. 43% of parents prefer a hybrid reopening. I only looked at that slide 1,000 times over the past. I can't believe I have those backwards. Our parents, 57 prefer fully reopening, and 42% would prefer remaining in hybrid. I can break those down a little bit for you by grade level. K through 6, parents prefer a full reopening, 64% to 35%. Grade 7 through 8, interestingly enough, 51% of the parents prefer the hybrid to 48% who prefer a full reopening. At the high school, we come back to 54% of parents prefer a full reopening and 45% of parents prefer the hybrid. So the numbers are trending towards a sentiment amongst our parents that prefer a full reopening. Next slide, please. So this is really important feedback that I've gotten from parents, and it is something that I am very mindful of. I asked our parents, if we fully reopen, would you continue to send your children to school in person, or would you move your children to the PVLA? We had about an 80% response rate to the survey. Within that 80%, 71 of our families have signaled to us that if we fully reopen, they will withdraw their children from the in-person school and enroll their children in the PVLA. And it goes the other way too. 20 of our families have signaled to us that they are ready to return fully in person if we open fully. So we're going to have a net gain in the PVLA of about 50 students. I expect that number will be a little bit higher because we didn't get 100% response rate. So I'm going to conservatively guess we're going to have a net gain of somewhere between 55 and 60 students in the PVLA. Now, I'll bring you back to the enrollment data that I showed you today. In most grade levels, we can absorb that now, but we're watching it very carefully, especially in places like second grade, where the numbers are already high. There is staffing implications for this, and we have to plan for it. if and when we fully reopen. So that's less opinion-based and more intention-based, and that's very important feedback, and I appreciate parents giving us that level of insight. Next slide, please. So I had 8 focus groups with parents, and I enjoyed the conversations. I found our parents very thoughtful, and I got pretty consistent feedback. You know, our parents consistently reflected on the difficulty of the hybrid, particularly for our younger students. You know, asking a kindergarten and a first grade student to learn on a computer, for all of the parents who are hearing the sound of my voice are shaking their heads when I say it is very challenging. They need a lot of help to do that. And that is very complicated, especially for our parents who are working from home. So the hybrid model is very difficult for our parents, particularly our working parents. It also has a direct impact on people's ability to work if care is needed to be provided, or they have to pay for the care the 3 days a week. I heard that very loud and clear and consistently from a large majority of the parents I spoke with. Universally, I heard our parents say wonderful things about our teachers and our building principals. They recognize how hard our teachers are working and are very grateful for all of the things our teachers and our schools are doing to support them. Parents also gave me feedback personally that they don't envy this decision, and they wanted me to know that they realize how difficult it is, and they wanted the Board of Ed to know that too, that they respect that this is a difficult decision. And I did hear some parents say they're glad they're not the ones that have to make it, but they recognize that how hard a decision this is for all of us to make. Clearly, nobody wants the hybrid. Everybody wants to get back to school in as normal an operating condition as possible. That is, of course, counterbalanced with the fear of getting sick. Everybody wants us to get back to normal, but nobody wants to get sick, which of course is the challenge, which is the nut we have to crack, the needle we have to thread here. In general, of the parents I spoke with, the overwhelming opinion was that people would prefer a full return to school. There were some voices advocating for the hybrid and reflecting fear of a full reopening. Oftentimes parents would say, I would go to the PVLA if you fully reopen. But the general consensus amongst the parents that I spoke with was advocating for a full reopening. Okay, next slide, please. So we also surveyed our students in grades 7 through 12. You heard some of these, this data in our student report. So the students did a survey and our school administrators did a survey. This is accurate. So 40% of our grade 7 through 12 students prefer a full reopening, and 60% prefer remaining in the hybrid. Let's go to the next slide, please. So it was really fascinating. I got this feedback from the Portland High School Student Senate, and I left it here because it matched exactly with the feedback I got from the students in the focus groups I ran. Our students are brilliant. They really are smart young people. I'm delighted to have them because they're going to take care of us all when we're too old someday, and they're going to do a great job of it, I'm sure. But here they are. They've clearly identified the pros and cons of the hybrid model. I think these are exact. Particularly, I want to point out the one about that I heard consistently from some of our students taking our higher level courses, that you cover a lot of content very quickly in our AP and UConn and ECE courses, and yet it's difficult to cover that amount and go through that pace of material in the hybrid format. Students want to be back in school, but they're, of course, like all of us, afraid of COVID. Nobody wants to get sick. I think that came through loud and clear in the survey and in my focus groups. So if we can go to the next slide, please. And of course, I thought this was brilliant. Our student senate gave us the pros and cons of a full reopening, right? I mean, I don't need to go through them all with you, but you know, our students are very insightful. They're living this. They're having the same feelings and observing the same things we are. And I really appreciate the Portland High School Faculty Senate or Student Senate gathering this feedback and giving it to me and letting us all reflect on it. So thank you to our students for being so wise and thoughtful about this. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so I did survey our faculty and staff, right? So here you'll see, and it's pretty consistent, that the faculty and staff generally, well, pretty strongly prefer the hybrid model. You know, to 74% of our faculty and staff prefer the hybrid, and 26% prefer the full reopening. As that breaks down at the building level, at Valley View, 58% of the faculty prefer the hybrid and 41% prefer a full reopening. At Gildersleeve, 75% of the faculty and staff prefer the hybrid, 25% prefer the full reopening. At Brownstone, 84% prefer the hybrid and 16% prefer the full. At Portland Middle School, 84% prefer the hybrid, 16% prefer the full. And at the high school, 66% prefer the hybrid and 34% would prefer a full reopening. I didn't put all of that data in there just because it would clutter up the slides, but there you see it. In general, my focus groups with teachers would reflect those themes there. Everybody wants to get back to normal. This hybrid schedule is incredibly challenging for our teachers. I've heard from many teachers, they feel like first-year teachers again. They are managing a lot. This is not sustainable for our teachers. Our teachers are working 80 hours a week, planning lessons in person and for the students remote and for the distance Wednesdays. It's incredibly difficult. Every teacher I spoke with wants to get back to normal, but that's balanced by a clear fear of this ongoing pandemic. Nobody wants to get sick. It's pretty simple. We all want to get back. The hybrid is extremely difficult on our teachers, but we have to balance that with a real and present fear of this pandemic. Next slide, please. So beyond the perception, I needed to dig into efficacy of the mitigation strategies. That's why we asked for this time in hybrid, so that we could study how well we were doing with all of the things that science tells us we need to do to keep the virus from spreading. And oh, by the way, it must be working because we have 0 infections in any of our buildings to date. So I asked our teachers, if we fully reopened, would they be able to ensure that the students continued to wear masks? This has been remarkable. Every teacher I've spoken with has told me in the hybrid, they have not had trouble keeping masks on students from pre-K all the way up through the high school. Our students get it. They are doing the right thing. I am very proud of them. So you see here that generally our teachers are agreeing and strongly agreeing that students would keep their masks on if both cohorts came back together and we fully reopened. So next slide, let's talk about the strongly agrees, the disagrees, and the neutrals. In general, our kids are wearing the masks. The concerns are not about kids wearing masks now, but what would happen if they all came back, right? So across grade levels, kids are doing a great job. The concerns are that if kids came back 5 days, that kids can tolerate 2 days in the masks, but 5 days in the masks might be a breaking point. I did hear that from teachers, that kids don't look forward to wearing masks all day, and they kind of are good sports and they do it for the 2 days where there are concerns, and we won't know until we live it, about if asked to wear a mask 5 days all day, that might start to break down the tolerance levels. That's a concern. And of course, the numbers of students in a room, reminding all of them to wear masks, and then the ability to run mask breaks, particularly if the weather's lousy and we have to do it indoors. And this is more of a distance issues, the ability for students to eat lunch and snack in a large room with masks off it is also a concern. So that was the feedback regarding masks from the faculty and staff I spoke with in our focus groups. Next slide, please. So the next thing we asked teachers is, one of the things we clearly need to be able to do is, if we identify a student with a sign or a symptom of COVID, immediately get them to the nurse's office and have them removed, right? So I asked teachers, now, are they able to, if a student isn't feeling well, is not looking good or demonstrating a sign or a symptom of COVID, identify them and get them out? The answer was yes, of course. With the smaller numbers, that is relatively easy to do. Here again, you see, generally our teachers are saying, yeah, I believe I would be able to do that. You know, if I had a large group of kids, yeah, I'm going to be vigilant. If I see a student that looks sick, I'm going to send them to the nurse immediately. Next slide, please. So to flesh this out in the focus groups, I asked teachers what their concerns might be about larger numbers of students and their ability to quickly identify a student with a sign and symptom. Here's what the concerns are, of course. Larger numbers of students, monitoring the well-being of all of those students is going to be more of a challenge. It's just eyes on more kids. And then, of course, the concern is the potential strain on our nurse's office. With lots more kids in the building, there will be more traffic through the nurse's office and more parents having to dismiss students. It's a real concern that our teachers have. Next slide, please. Then I asked our teachers first their feelings when the focus groups. I asked them about how well they feel the facilities are being cleaned, and if they felt like with more kids, there would be less of an ability to keep the facilities sanitized and cleaned. That's the quantitative data. Next slide, please. We'll show the feedback in the focus group. I need to start by saying every single teacher I spoke with said by name the name of the custodian in their building and said how grateful they were for that person in terms of the cleaning that they're doing. All of our teachers are seeing their rooms cleaned every day, especially on that Wednesday, and are feeling like the rooms are sanitary and they're being cleaned well by our custodians. They also feel like with the smaller numbers, have spray bottles and do a lot of cleaning during the day with our students. So they're making sure students wash and sanitize their hands and that we spray down the tables before use at the high school level and before and after things like lunches and snacks at the lower grades, K-6 grades. Certainly, with more students and by taking away the Wednesday, there is a concern that the need for more cleaning will be present, which is a reality. And of course, you know, our resources will be stretched with respect to having to clean every desk and especially if we take away the Wednesday cleaning. Next slide. Dylan, can you find out whoever that noise is in the background, just mute them. I'm getting some background here. Okay, so this is the elephant in the room, right? Which is the social distancing issue. Currently in the hybrid model, our class sizes have somewhere between 8 to 11 students in a room. In some cases, a little bit lower than 8. In the hybrid model, we're able to spread students out well over the 6 feet, in some cases up to 10 feet, because there are fewer numbers of students. It's just a matter of square footage. If we bring all of our students back together, you see here our teachers are strongly disagreeing with the observation that we would be able to maintain that distance, right? This is the major concern that was shared with me by our teachers. It's just a function of square inches in number of people in a classroom, that more kids in the classroom inhibits our ability to maintain the 6 feet. So next slide, please. This is, that's why it's underlined, the major concern raised by our faculty and staff is that if we expect 6 or more feet and we bring all of our students back, that ability to guarantee that 6 feet consistently would be compromised. I heard that from every teacher I spoke with about this issue. Okay, next slide, please. So, after taking all of this into consideration and being aware of the current metrics and the fact that we have had 0 new infections in our school, it is the recommendation of the leadership team, the reopening committee, and me that we do fully reopen the schools on Monday, October 26th. And that once we do that, we allow the metrics to determine the operating model. So we'll bring all of our students back Monday, October 26th. If cases at any point rise above, excuse me, I should start with if they stay below 10 new cases per 100,000, we would stay in the fully reopened model. If they move between 10 and 25, we would return to hybrid. And if, God forbid, they go above 25 cases, that would be a signal that we need to go back to a remote position the way we were in the spring. I don't say this excitedly. I am concerned, and I am going to be monitoring this very carefully. I will be speaking daily with our principals. I will be visiting all of our buildings every day, and we're going to watch this. But we are ready to give it a shot, and October 26th is the day we'd like to start. Next slide, please. So why the 26th and why not earlier? So we asked the community for the 13th. I'm asking for a little bit more time. I'm asking, instead of the 13th, give us the week after Columbus Day weekend and the week after that, and then that Monday we'll get going. We need that time for the following reasons. Yes, it will give us an extra 2 weeks to study the transmission rates and see how towns that have already opened like Cromwell and East Hampton do. So that's certainly a benefit of waiting 2 weeks, but that's not the primary reason. The primary reason why we need the 2 weeks is that I will tomorrow communicate to all of our families that this is the plan and ask families to I'll give them a week because I know that they need to reflect on it, to let us know by a week from tomorrow whether their intention is to withdraw and go to the PVLA or exit the PVLA and return in person. We need some time for this because clearly this has major staffing implications. I can't just turn on a dime here if we have many more students moving over to the PVLA. If it turns out that PVLA has a net gain of 50, Eric and I are already looking at those numbers. We think we're going to be able to absorb that. If it's more than 50, we've got work to do. And I've got to find a way to smoothly transition those students into that program so that we don't lose any continuity of instruction. Also, I've been in conversation with Jessica Brun and Ryan Wallstrom. We are going to, once the dust settles and we know how many students are leaving to go to PVLA and returning from PVLA, exploring the option of opening additional sections on a temporary basis by potentially reassigning some of our support teachers, our interventionists or our specialist teachers to open another section. If we did that in certain grade levels, and I'm not prepared to say exactly what that's going to be yet, I have to wait for the dust to settle, that could potentially reduce our class sizes from 17, 18, 19 down to 13, 14, 15. If the class sizes were 13, 14, and 15 pre-K through grade 4, that would enable us to keep the kids 6 feet apart more consistently. So I'm not giving up on this idea of the 6 feet distance. We just need a little bit of time and we need to learn, study the numbers of students coming and going from PVLA before we can make that adjustment. And of course, if we make that adjustment, those teachers who are going to pick up those sections need some training, they need some time, they need resources, and of course, we need to get the facilities ready to do that. So I'm thinking that we've got a lot of work to do, but if we take till the 26th, we'll be able to do it right, and we won't miss a beat in terms of maintaining the continuum of teaching and learning for our students. That's all. We'll certainly answer questions at this point.
I have one right off the bat. Have you gotten any feedback from any teachers or other staff that are working in either the PVLA or in the buildings that want to switch from one to the other?
To be honest, I haven't gotten feedback from faculty or staff, but the building principals, Eric and I, have already started approaching teachers and having some of these conversations. I will characterize some of those conversations as difficult conversations, but I think all of our teachers recognize that these are unique times. Some of these reassignments would be temporary only until we can test or vaccinate our way out of this thing. And that we're all operating in a model that may not be the best for teaching and learning, but is the best in terms of preventing the spread of COVID-19.
Board members have questions?
Yeah, I have a bunch.
Okay.
So, I think it would be a lot easier to sort of cohort groups at the elementary level. So I guess, how do we, you know what I mean? Like there's X number of kids, 20 kids in the third grade classroom. So you can minimize movement of that group within a school, but how are we going to do that at the middle and the high school?
We are already cohorting students in grade 7 and 8. So we are cohorted students in K-8 at the middle school. The teachers are all on carts and moving between cohorts of students, and students are not intermingling in grade 7 and 8.
But not at the high school.
Not at the high school. Clearly, the high school it is impossible to cohort students at the high school. I have confidence that our students at the high school are doing the right thing by wearing masks and making it a point to socially distance themselves from one another. I was up here today and I watched a fire drill because I wanted to see what would happen when kids came out of the building. I will tell you, our students get it at the high school. They were all outside and I saw them 6 feet apart with their masks on, and they didn't have to be, right? I mean, they could have been outside and congregated. I have confidence that in some cases with gentle reminders, our high school students are going to be able to do the right thing and keep themselves apart and wear the masks and wash their hands and clean their desks and do the things that we need to do. Kate Lawson is here, and if you'd like to hear from her and unmute that, I think she shares that observation.
Yeah, I mean, I have confidence our kids can do that, but that's only with what, 40% of the bodies in the building.
Yeah, I'm confident they could do that if they were all here.
Okay. And then what happens when a teacher does test positive? What's the protocol or the procedure for that?
Yeah, we're prepared for that. So fortunately, we've had no positive cases. If we do, that would mean that teacher or student or administrator or paraprofessional or secretary or custodian or bus driver or anybody would be immediately removed from the building, and we would safely make sure they're brought home, right, or brought to a place where they would then quarantine for 14 days. At that time, I would, or Dawn Davis would, immediately contact the Chatham Health District, and we would begin contact tracing. I should say,
and that's going to raise some staffing issues.
That is what happened at Colchester Elementary School. Colchester Elementary School hasn't closed because of a massive outbreak of COVID-19. They've closed because a large number of their staff have to quarantine.
Go lay down. Go lay down.
So that is a potential reality that we may close, not because of above 25 new cases, but because a large number of our teachers and support staff are required to isolate.
I have a couple of questions.
I can go on unless somebody else has one.
Well, do you want to finish, Chris? I can
Go
wait.
ahead. Go ahead.
The schedule at the middle school and high school was to extend, to do block scheduling with increasing the class time. Will that change when we go back to full time?
No,
Will they
not-
go back to the 45-minute classes or whatever they are?
the middle school and the high school are on 4-block period now.
Right.
The high school is cohorted in the 4-block. They will stay that way. The high school is also on the 4-block, but they're not cohorted, but they will stay at the 4-block.
The 4-block, okay. And also, have you considered an early dismissal on Wednesday so that there could be a deep cleaning in between, rather than having the kids 5 days in school and not being able to do the deeper cleaning? Would an early dismissal on Wednesdays break the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday days in school full time to allow the custodians to do a deep clean in between those days?
Have we considered it? Yes. Is it part of the recommendation? Not right now. The recommendation is back fully 5 days a week, full days.
Okay, and how will that cleaning be done then? And in other words, what's the plan to do the deeper cleaning?
Yep, Carl and I are in constant contact, and we're going to monitor that closely. We are prepared to bring in substitute custodians. It is an added expense, so I hope Stephanie isn't hearing, or I'm going to give her a hive. But we will make sure that we clean the buildings as well as we can, second shift, and if necessary, bring in a third shift.
Okay. Go ahead, Chris. You can have it back.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to get back to I might have missed this, the testing that we're going to be able to do. So when do you anticipate we'll be able to do that, and how will that work?
Right now, we are not as a school doing any testing. There are many testing centers open now. I think we've reached a point where anybody that needs to be tested can be tested. I was tested this summer and I had my results in 3 hours. But I couldn't do it here. I had to go to a place down CVS and Walgreens and on Main Street in Middletown there. So that is available, but we're not doing those. The difference is what I heard today, and what I think is reflected in the letters and communications, is that shortly, and I don't know what shortly is, I'm hoping by the end of next week, right, that we're going to get guidelines about how we might potentially train our nurses to do on-site testing. But I don't have an event horizon for that. That is something that I'm hopeful we'll be getting more information about over the coming weeks.
And then this might seem silly, but when is the end of the first marking term at the high school?
Oh gosh, if Kate Lawson's here and we could unmute her and she could answer that, I don't know the exact date.
And the only reason I ask that is because I wonder if it, and again, because I'm a parent of a high school kid, so that's sort of the way I think of it. That seems like a natural break to sort of start, a new type of learning, but I don't know that really makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think what you would hear from certainly our K through 4 parents is they're ready to go.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now.
Today, tomorrow. Yes, please.
Yeah. I can tell just by listening in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Can you hear the screams all the way from my house, Chris, or?
I don't know, Lauren, they're all kind of a blur. I'm not sure whose it is. It's not mine.
But that's, my feedback to what you've said, Charles, is that it would be great if we could do something to accommodate all those parents and those children of those lower grades who are really, really struggling with the hybrid model, and would like to come back sooner. And I know from what you said here, that you need that extra time to do what you need to do to prepare it. But I just know how my heart bleeds for them and how hard it's going to be for another 3 weeks at this point, I think, to.
Yeah, Tim, I've had heartbreaking conversations with parents.
I know, yeah.
And I wouldn't ask for the extra time if we really didn't need it. And we need that because we need this to be smooth. I can't, this is not a time to have any chaos.
Right.
We need the transition into and out of the schools to be smooth. And our principals are working hard on it, but the first thing I'm gonna need to know definitively is how many of our parents are leaving the classroom and going to the PVLA. Because if that's a sufficient number, we won't need to open the other sections, right? So I've
Right.
got to know that first. And if it's not a sufficient number and we open the other sections, we really owe it to those teachers who are taking the extra sections, not to throw them in it right away, but to give them some training and support necessary to greet the students the way they need to be greeted from day one.
Right, absolutely.
Charles, can
No.
I ask? Oh, I'm sorry, Tim. If you're still going, please go. I'm sorry.
No, I'm all done. No.
I was just going to ask with the additional sections, how are you going to do that? Is it going to cost more money? Are you hiring staff? And where are these children coming from and going to?
Okay, so I'm not ready to talk to you in specifics about that. I'll talk to you in general terms about that. We're not hiring additional staff. You've already heard me talk about how broke we are. And every day that goes by, we get it into a deeper hole, right? So we're not hiring extra staff. If we need to staff the PVLA because people are going there, that comes with a cost because that's what we've agreed to with the teachers, that we wouldn't make them teach both their in-person and their at-home kids. We committed to dedicated teachers for that. So that would be a cost, and that would require us posting and assigning additional sections. What I think you're talking about, though, is once we figure out, I'm going to say this just as randomly, so any fourth grade teachers don't think I'm talking about you. If not enough students left fourth grade or more students came from PVLA back to fourth grade, and we found ourselves looking at class sizes in fourth grade of 20, that's when we would consider reassigning potentially a specialist teacher or somebody else to a sixth section of fourth grade, and then reducing the class sizes in the other 4 sections, right? That's very difficult because that means some students who have already started developing a relationship with that teacher might be reassigned to another teacher. And we have to be very mindful and thoughtful about how we make those decisions and communicate it. But again, it would be temporary until this is over. And the point of it would be to reduce class sizes so we can get that 6 feet or as close to it as possible.
I totally understand that. I'm even thinking, you just mentioned specialist teachers. Are we talking, do we have teachers with multiple certifications? Are there certification allowances? Like, how do you even, I'm a music teacher. I could not teach first grade.
We do have the teachers who are appropriately credentialed.
Okay.
I have a question, and this goes back to looking at the survey data from the teachers and the staff. Obviously, most of the teachers wanted you to wait until after Veterans Day, and this is a hard question. How is this teacher morale going to be going forward, knowing that they're not getting the hybrid model till after Veterans Day? And I'm concerned that the teacher morale will not be great, and I'm concerned about that. They're doing a hard job as it is. This makes it maybe harder for them.
Me too, and I'm glad you said that. So I think there are going to be 2 reactions from our teachers. One, oh, thank God I don't have to do this hybrid thing anymore. This hybrid thing is awful. It is as difficult as it is for parents. Trust me, it is stressful and an enormous amount of work for our teachers. So one, I think there will be a recognition that yes, I can get back to the way I'm used to seeing all of my students every day and not having to make these multiple lesson plans and redesign my units. That's one. But Meg, to your point, that is definitely counterbalanced with fear that I'm going to have a lot more people in front of me every day. And high school teachers, in some cases, have 125 kids in front of them over their 5 sections, right?
Yeah.
And we have to be aware of that and monitor it closely. But is that going to influence morale? Of course. People are going to be fearful, more fearful, right? My hope is that they get back, we get through the first couple of weeks, it goes great. There's still no positive cases. The numbers are low and we're rolling. But my commitment to the teachers is I'm watching these numbers closely. And if we go above 10, we're going back to hybrid. If we go above 25, we're going back to remote.
Can I jump in here for a quick second? Charles and I spoke earlier because I had some questions that I wanted answers to. And one of the things you said to me, Charles, that I don't think you've mentioned tonight that was helpful, was that part of why you wanted to delay the opening for a couple of weeks was that you wanted to give your principals time to reach out to faculty, staff, and staff members who have expressed particular concerns, and to be able to for the principals to be able to meet the needs that they have expressed in terms of masks and social distancing and all of these things. So I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think I had that in my bulleted points, but for example, Kate will know which of her classes are large. Now it's time to have some conversations about what support teachers need in those classes, including possibly reassigning the class to a different location that's larger, right? And giving our teachers, if they need more training, if they need more PPE, if they need more support, we're going to do a lot of work over the coming weeks, reaching out to people who have expressed concern both in the survey and in the focus groups to make sure that they have the time they need to get ready for the 26th.
I think that's going to be really important because I'm concerned. Obviously, this is not what they were hoping, and hopefully they'll realize that going back full is better than the hybrid, but they really were requesting hybrid, so we'll see. But thank you. This keeps you up at night, I'm sure, and it keeps me up at night, and I'm sure the rest of the board realizes that too. This is a tough call, and everybody wants something. Everybody wants the same thing. We want a good education for our kids. We want our kids to be back in school and to go back to some semblance of normal. But sometimes, our desires don't necessarily match. And I think this is a case where we're going to do the best we can for everybody, but it's not going to be the answer for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough. It's a tough.
Yeah, you're going to make almost as many people happy as you are going to make them not happy.
Well, but I think the other thing is we do have, if you're really uncomfortable, anxious, or whatever, and you can see your way through to have the PVLA option, I think that's a good one. I think that's a great way to go. I hope we don't anticipate moving a lot of kids into that, so that we don't overload that end either. But we'll have to wait and see.
And my only comment along those same lines is we set expectations, which I think Charles has done a good job, because if we're splitting the school up this way, there's no way our teachers can they're doing a great job. There's no way that they can do what they should be doing, not should be doing, but to be able to teach the way they would like to be teaching with this hybrid or via the remote and the in-person. So just set expectations that there's no easy answer here, that when we're going down this path of splitting things, that it's not going to be easy. The question I had for you is, I don't know if you reach out to any of the other schools, because I know there are other schools started full-time already. I think Glastonbury went K through 6 day one, and I haven't heard anything. I have a neighbor that's a teacher there, and I haven't heard any issues with that. Maybe that's some learnings there that can make our teachers feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, I literally right before this board meeting, I was on the phone with the superintendent of East Haddam and East Hampton and Colchester and others. I am regularly in communication with superintendents. Everybody's a little bit all over the place. Some are still completely hybrid, some are completely open, some are K-6 hybrid, 7-12 open. Everybody's all over the place a little bit. The two big ones for me, East Haddam opened from day one, everybody. East Hampton just went back fully, everyone. Cromwell just went back fully, everyone. Berlin is staying in hybrid at the 7-12 level until Thanksgiving, but had just went back K-6 fully. It's really, it's unique. Everybody's in a little bit of a different spot. And of course, look at the news. Some districts, have gotten walloped. We've been very lucky and good, right? I mean, I think it's equal parts luck, but equal parts, the community doing the right thing and not having massive parties or not following the rules. I think our Portland residents and God bless them are doing the right thing. And I think our mitigation strategies are as strong as they can be. So please, everybody, keep doing the right thing so we can keep these schools open. It's just going to be a few more months. Just nose to the grindstone. Order takeout. Don't go have dinner yet. It's not time. No concerts, anybody. No trips to the fun.
Yeah, no.
Stay home and watch Netflix and help us keep the schools open.
Agreed.
Other two comments were going to be along the lines of what Bag was saying about the cleaning on Wednesday. I assume those resources will either be used throughout the day or there'll be more extensive cleaning at night, because those resources don't go away. We've already budgeted for them. So there will be some inherent deeper cleaning. It just won't be a solid full day between school days.
For sure. And everybody, we need to know, and again, if Stephanie's listening to this, she'll roll her eyes. Our burn rate through hand sanitizer and cleaning products is going to go way up. So, yes.
That's a small price to pay for health and safety, because that's really what that's all about.
If I heard you right, it sounds like everybody's doing their part during the day. Even some of the students and the teachers, everybody's spraying their desks and hand sanitizer and things like that. So I think that's a big part of it.
I walked in here tonight and Dylan walked over and sprayed down the table for me. Yes, everybody's doing their part.
That's good.
I'm really proud of everybody.
I know in the past we made a motion to support your recommendation, and Sharon, I don't know if we're at that point where you'd like a motion. Can Sharon hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Just giving other people an opportunity to speak up if they had any other questions or comments, and hearing none. Somebody want to make a motion?
I certainly do. I'd like to make a motion that we support Dr. Britton's recommendation to open fully on October the 26th.
Second.
Is that a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Question?
just one thing, and I want to say I fully appreciate. We were laughing before, but the hardship it is for elementary, especially aged kids, but and also the deep cleaning, right? But most of the stuff that's coming out right now is saying that we're not getting transmission from surface cleaning.
Right.
So a lot of that, I'll just be honest. It's for show. It's theater, right? The way that this is getting transmitted is large groups of people gathering indoors, which we're getting ready to do in schools, and other schools are doing it. So we're out of the norm. But the one thing that we probably should not be doing is what we're about ready to do.
What's the alternative? We go all learn at home, distance learning?
Well, I think we can maintain better distancing through hybrid, and I know it's inconvenient. I totally get that. I also get that our high school kids are going to be good at distancing, but you're talking about increasing the capacity and the number of people in that building by quite a bit pretty soon when they can't go outdoors.
Chris, a lot of my understanding with that is that masks mitigate quite a bit. And,
absolutely.
And yeah. And for me, as a parent of 3 elementary school children, it's a lot more than an inconvenience.
Thank you for saying that.
I have to say it's, I've said this to Charles directly. I've talked to principals. I'm a stay-at-home parent right now, and I'm a formerly certified teacher. And man, it is hard being home with my 3 children all day long, helping them manage tech issues, academic issues, whatever is going on. And I am really highly qualified to help them with their education. I cannot imagine what a lot of our families are doing, and I'm privileged enough to stay home. So I really do feel like it is a lot more than an inconvenience. And in my opinion, we're looking at these children's really their futures. We're looking at developing these early literacy skills. The younger the children are, in my opinion, the more important that they're in school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, another, and I get that, I really do, you know, but we could also do something where we have the high school continue to be in hybrid, because I mean, really, honestly, and if I weren't a parent of a high school student, I think I would think the same thing. That, you know,
Frankly, I understand. I do support. I would support hybrid for high school kids, because I see that they're seeing so many children in a day, whereas we're cohorting so strongly at the elementary and middle school level. To me, it is very different, the two levels.
Yeah.
I would just say that I spoke to Charles specifically about that earlier, and Charles, you should you know, feel free to chime in. I don't want to speak for you, but to paraphrase, he said it's kind of now or never, that if we're going to give our students the experience of being in school 5 days a week, to get the chance to build relationships and build trust with their teachers, to you know, to experience any of that, that if it doesn't happen in this moment, it's not happening.
Yeah.
We've said all along that, and this is me, not Charles saying that, but we've said all along that we fully expect this to be a year where the only consistent thing is that things are constantly changing, right? And we've all kind of been anticipating this moment where sometime at some point through this school year, our numbers start to rise and we have to go back to a fully distant model at some point, perhaps. And it seems like if we don't take advantage of this moment now, where our numbers have been consistently low, transmission rates are staying low in our community, that we might miss our window.
And I would just say, and I'll say this as clearly as I can in my former high school principal voice. High school kids, I'm counting on you. You need to do the right thing. Wear the masks, wash your hands, stay 6 feet away from each other, stay home if you're sick. I trust you can do this. If you can't do this, you will shut us down.
Okay, we're ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for all the work that you've put into this, and the presentation tonight was very comprehensive.
Thank you.
Yeah, Charles, having that slideshow available for everybody was so super helpful, really, as both a Board of Ed member, and I imagine for all of our folks watching at home also. So helpful. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Committee reports. Is there a curriculum report this week?
Yes, we had a meeting 2 weeks ago. They are hard at work, as you can imagine. They'll be making some plans for fully reopening. Let's see, I have some notes here. There's a lot of talk on the committee about how to streamline budgets. What is the best way to be planning budgeting? They're aligning their professional development goals with our Board of Ed goals and initiatives. Right now, they're going to be working soon on developing or identifying gaps in learning that have occurred. So assessments will start beginning with students. Talk of the equity task force. And they are planning a curriculum team retreat probably in early November. So that'll be really good.
Great. Policy.
Policy is working through another handful of policies. We're going to meet on October 13th, and then we'll be looking forward to the November CABE update. Hopefully it'll be.
About looking forward.
Not all of you. Personnel, we scheduled our meeting on the 5th, did you say, Charles?
Yeah, I got it.
November
it's coming
5th.
up. I think
We'll
it's the-
start, we'll take a look at that new stipend issue, and we're going to start
November 5th, yeah.
reviewing our contracts that are going to be coming up for negotiations later in the spring. Building and grounds, I think we know what exactly.
Well, there is a meeting on October 22nd. Carl put it out tonight, and it'll meet at 5 o'clock. I think everybody responded, and we're going to look at the detailed list of projects that could be done and prioritize some of them prior to the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen.
Conservation and Renewable Task Force.
Yeah, we actually do have a little update tonight. The Board of Selectmen will have a presentation from a representative from the Connecticut Green Bank tomorrow night during their meeting. And I think the intention is for them to lay out a timeline for the power purchase agreement regarding the potential solar array on Brownstone's roof. So I will attend that meeting and we'll have more to report back on at our next meeting.
Great. That's exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Correct liaison.
Correct had their meeting and their policy meeting. They're going through the same thing that we are with their policies, updating, rewriting, doing the pandemic stuff, and nothing really to report except, no money and just all of the usual challenges that we have. They have the same things on a much larger scale.
Selectmen.
Just two small things that probably of importance is they talked about the Racial Equity, Diversion and Inclusion Committee, and they decided to change it from 5 to 7 members with 2 alternates because they've had a very strong response from the community to be part of that. And they just touched a little bit on the reentry committee or reopening committee that, the Boy Scouts are going to be allowed to use one of the firehouse facilities to have some meetings, and the town hall is going to be having a table up front and allowing, people to come in and through appointments type of thing, do a little bit more. So things are starting to open up a little bit, not huge, but I mean, slow steps, instead of big steps, but I see it as a positive sign.
Great, thank you. Do we have any citizens looking to comment?
Sharon, I'm wondering if I could just ask a quick question regarding the reopening before we move on. Do we have a schedule for how the rest of hybrid is going to work out moving towards October 26th?
Yeah, I'm going to put that out in the email tomorrow. We're not going to have a remote learning day next week. It'll be cohort B Tuesday, Wednesday, cohort A Thursday, Friday. The next week, cohort B,
and then A.
Then distance. So the week after Columbus Day will be the last remote Wednesday, and that's a normal week.
Okay.
So for next week, we're not going to have the Wednesday.
Okay.
Because we have the Monday off. So I want
a day off.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dylan, any audience of citizens? Okay. Yep. I see a nod.
Hi, it's Elizabeth Trojanowski again on 77 Old Marlboro Turnpike. I just wanted to throw something out there as a teacher myself, working with students. I've worked with students in the past before with reading workshop and writing workshop. And I'm just wondering if moving forward, or kind of backward, I guess, looking at the data backwards, I think we should still keep in mind the idea of collecting data on how students have been doing working independently and learning independently. I think one major component of all of this that, all of our focus is on reopening the schools, and it should be, we want to make sure that we're doing all this in a safe way. And, and I appreciate all of the hard work, but I also don't want to forget about how much work has been put into teaching students how to be independent learners. And I think if there's a way that we can collect some data on that, I think it's really important to really study the effects of all of this distance learning, what it's had on their actual, learning. So finding a way to collect some information or collect some data on that, I think is really important.
Right there.
And I don't know if there's any plans to do that, moving forward. And then also my second question is there going to be a time, are we setting some sort of a date to revisit this? Or are we just strictly going by numbers and how transmission rates are going? Or is it possible to revisit and consistently keep surveying students and teachers on, wearing those masks and social distancing and how, how repositioning students in the classroom is going. So I didn't know if you had some sort of a date that we should be looking forward to revisit some of this stuff. That's all. Thank you.
Welcome. Any others?
We have one. Lila's going to read it now.
Our next comment is from Stephanie Bolstridge, and she lives at 10 Farm Lane. Our next comment is from Stephanie Bolstridge. She lives at 10 Farm Lane. And she says, I have 3 children in school, kindergarten, 3, and 5. First, let me say the teachers are doing their best and are working way more than they should have to in this hybrid model. The hybrid model is ineffective for young kids. My kindergartner has not been getting the education she deserves, and that's not the teacher's fault. It's just not possible for these kids to learn in this environment. There should be a solution that gets the younger children back in school, even if the older kids are still in hybrid. This hybrid model is worst case scenario for teachers, parents, and students. Given the numbers in this state are within the recommendations for full opening, I urge you to reopen schools at least 4 days a week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else hear that? Yeah, that's bad.
There's some kind of feedback, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, our next comment is from Marie Yardis. She did not give her address. Our family certainly appreciates that the decision here was based on data. My 3rd grader is actually dancing with joy. He loves being in school and is at his happiest when he is in a shared environment with his peers.
Okay, great.
Take it. Guys have any others? No more, yeah.
Hi, this is Karen Maza, 13 Perry Avenue. Can you hear me?
Gotcha, yes. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I have a few things to say. Just listening to the slideshow from Dr. Britton, and this wasn't presented on the slide, but verbally you had said that across all your schools, a majority of teachers supported staying in the hybrid model. I think that speaks volumes because yes, I agree with everyone as a high school teacher myself that teaching in the hybrid model is incredibly, incredibly difficult for a number of reasons. So to have your teachers say they would like to continue in the hybrid model is probably speaking to the fear for their safety if you can't guarantee 6-foot distance in the classrooms and the numbers that will increase in their classrooms. Working in a high school, I watch students during passing time, and it is impossible to socially distance. We have half the population in, and they are shoulder to shoulder, and I'm nervous about what a full high school will look like during passing time. I know you can say to the students, do the right thing, but when they spill out into the hallways all at once from a classroom, it gets really difficult for them to maintain 6 feet when you have, you know, that many kids in a hallway. And I'm also concerned about the 6 foot distance in the classroom. I guess I would like to see the district give some consideration to leaving the high school and hybrid because of those particular issues, and K through 8, especially if 7, I didn't realize 7 through 8 was doing a cohorting model with teachers traveling. I think that's a fantastic idea that you've been doing. And I also would like information about, so on October 26th, if your first quarter ends November 5th, you have all these students at the high school level that have now been with their teachers in their schedule for the majority of quarter 1. If they choose to go all remote, I guess I would like the board to consider what would happen with those students in those particular situations. You have credit-bearing courses, transcripts, and grades being put on permanent record. So I'd like to know what will happen with those students if they were to transition upon full reopening to the Distance Learning Academy. And who will they be instructed with? And I'm assuming it wouldn't be with their peers anymore. And what would those classes look like? Thank you.
Sure. Can I just point out to everybody too, we're not ignoring your questions, but we don't respond in audience of citizens. Certainly my email address is cbritton@portlandct.us. If anybody would like to email me, I would be happy to respond to your email or arrange a phone call with anybody who has made comments. But at board meetings, we just don't engage in a discussion. It's not a town hall. I don't want people to think we're not able or willing to answer their question. Dylan, you have any more? Okay, yep.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Matt Walsh, 25 Farm Lane. I just want to thank you all for really taking the time to understand the kind of the plight of us parents who have children in the younger grades, and just the thought that's really gone into putting together this whole reopening plan. So thank you all very much, and thank you for the consideration. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Done? That's it. I'm seeing it done. Okay.
Okay. Thank you all for your comments. Are there any Board of Education members who'd like to comment any further? No? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I motion.
To adjourn. Go ahead, Tim, you got it.
I motion we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Sorry, my dog was barking.